The NFL off season, and the number one position we are all wondering about, of course, is the quarterback position. There are some free agents. There are teams moving on from certain quarterbacks. There are quarterbacks looking for a fresh start in another franchise. How does this relate to our own lives? What are we looking for? As quarterbacks look for a new opportunity, they look for a fresh start. What are we looking for? As teams consider what they need at the quarterback position, what do we need in life? Let's unpack it. Welcome to the Unpackin It podcast, where we unpack parallels, metaphors, and topics in sports that relate to life and faith. I'm Bryce Johnson in downtown Mount Holly, just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, joined today by my co-host Trip Smith. On today's episode, we are unpacking NFL quarterbacks. Where will they go? What do teams need? What do quarterbacks, what are they looking for? And we're going to take a look at some of the backup quarterbacks, the rookie quarterbacks, or the quarterbacks wanting to be drafted, and some of these veteran quarterbacks. So from Aaron Rodgers to Mendoza, who's going where, and looking at some key categories as far as what these teams and players are looking for. Some are looking for hope. Some are looking for a fresh start. Some are looking to move on. And so we're going to discuss freedom today and a lot of different kind of topics that all sort of tie in together as we continue to follow Jesus together. And so glad to have you a part of the show today. If you are watching us live, we are live right now. And so we appreciate you commenting wherever you are watching, whether that's on social media, Facebook, X, LinkedIn. Glad to have you here. Leave your comments. And kind of the question today, where do you think some of these NFL quarterbacks will go? Where do you think Kyler Murray's going? Where do you think Tua Tagovailoa is going? Is Kirk Cousins going to end up somewhere? What about Derek Carr coming back? So curious your thoughts on that. And then thanks everybody that listens and watches this show later on YouTube and Spotify and Apple. Glad to have you a part of this show and a part of this ministry. We appreciate your support, not only in watching, liking, sharing, commenting, reviewing. We're very grateful for you, but also for all of you that support our ministry financially. We are grateful to you. And thanks for allowing us to continue to do this and teaming up together. I also want to thank our sponsor, Upward Running. We're talking Upward Running today. So you can turn your small group into a community on the move. Upward Running helps adults go from couch to competing in a 5K together. You provide the run coach, and Upward Running will equip them with training plans, resources, and support to lead well. It's a fun, healthy way to grow relationships, encourage one another, and experience fitness and fellowship together. Learn more today at upward.org/runcoach, upward.org/runcoach. All right. So what quarterback in the NFL right now, if they were in the right spot this coming year, you think they'll thrive? And then what team, if they found the right quarterback, do you think, oh yeah, that team's getting over the hump? And so we will begin the show today. And how about we ask Trip that question? Trip, how you doing, man?
I'm great. And I think that's exactly the right way to frame the question. It's really two questions that are working kind of in opposite directions from each other. You know, what quarterback given the right situation would we see flourish or maybe have a renaissance in their career, a la Sam Darnold from this last season? Alternatively, these teams are looking for who is the guy that's going to get us over the hump. And so much of this conversation is a question of sort of match. It's a question of scheme fit. Can you find the head coach and quarterback that work well together? We've seen what happens when a coach and a QB don't like each other, and that never bodes well over the course of an entire season. Can you find the quarterback that fits the offensive scheme that the coach and the coordinator want to run? And so this is an exciting time of year where teams are having those conversations. QBs are thinking through those things. And we're going to see, I think, a cascade, sort of a domino effect of moves that happen in the next month or two when it comes to these quarterbacks, so that teams have their guys on site by the time that early season OTA type stuff starts happening.
That's right. So I love this type of topic today because I love the possibilities, the potential of what we might see just with quarterbacks changing places. Because it's fun to imagine, like, what if Tua goes to the Falcons? What if he goes to the Jets? What if he goes to the Browns? And you just do that for multiple players. And so the larger topic that we're going to parallel to our own lives today is this concept of looking and needing. And so different quarterbacks have, different things they're looking for in their next opportunity. And teams are identifying sort of the type of quarterback they're looking for and really kind of what their team needs moving forward. Not just a practical need, but like some teams need hope. And so if you're Cleveland, if you're the Raiders, you know what you need more than anything? Hope. And so you're looking for a quarterback that can bring some hope to your franchise. And if you're somebody like Kyler Murray, you're looking for a fresh start. Or you could frame it this way. If you're Kyler Murray, you're looking to move on from Arizona. Or if you're the Cardinals, you're ready to move on from Kyler Murray. And if you're the Jets, you're already saying, hey, we're ready to move on from Justin Fields. If you're the Falcons, you're ready to move on from Kirk Cousins. And so for you, Trip, as you look at a number of these quarterbacks, names we're throwing out there, a couple I've already thrown out there, who is most intriguing? Like their decision and sort of their start to the domino effect is most intriguing to you?
I'll tell you, the guy at the top of the list for me, that's an easy answer. And it is Kyler Murray. Because, you and I, we're big fantasy football players. We pay attention to the NFL through the lens of fantasy football very often. And there was a time not too long ago when Kyler was really in the discussion for the number one overall fantasy QB because of what he could do with his legs, but also because he really does have incredible arm talent. He is a great passer of the football. And the thing that's so interesting about Kyler to me is I think so many of the questions with him are psychological in nature. Like what headspace is he in, right?
And effort.
Exactly. What do you have to do to get this guy motivated? Because nobody, even after he recovered from the ACL tear from the knee injury, nobody questions this guy's talent. And you see it in stretches. It seems to especially show up in the fourth quarter of games when the Cardinals are coming back. It's not fair to say that he is a garbage time QB when they really have a chance to push for a win at the end of the game, but they're coming from behind. Something seems to happen to him. And we've seen time and time again that he can make miraculous plays with his arms or with his arm and with his feet. But the knock on him has always been this guy loves Call of Duty more than he loves being an adult, mature, professional football player. And you've heard that enough over the course of enough seasons at this point that I think there's got to be some real sort of grounding to those rumors that you hear about him. And so he is easily at the top of the list for me in terms of the one that offers the most intrigue, because I think that you could see him end up with a coach who mentors him well, who tells him to grow up a little bit, who gives him a fresh start, who takes away his Xbox. And I really think that you could see him be the guy who takes a team that's on the verge of competing to making a push for the Super Bowl, the way that we saw Sam Darnold do last season. Alternatively, I think that you could see him show up at a team and it just be a train wreck from the beginning because the match is not there, the personality fit is not there, and maybe he just never matures into it. It's the Colin Cowherd backwards baseball cap sort of theory of quarterbacking. Like maybe he just never grows up and becomes a mature leader that you want for your professional football team. And so I think that there's a huge range of outcomes with him, but I've always been a believer in his talent. He's a guy that I've drafted many times in fantasy football because of what he's capable of doing. He can put up points in fantasy and he can put up points in real football. And so I'm excited to see where Kyler lands.
Yeah, I think he's definitely the biggest name that will move. And it definitely,
can I ask you though?
Definitely looks like Arizona's moving on from.
Right. I do not. I think the one thing we can say for certain is that he won't be on the Cardinals next season. But I want to ask you: is he really the biggest? It feels like his stock took a huge hit this past season. Like I feel like he went from. Before this past season, people are saying, okay, if he can get all the way back from the knee injury, this guy can be one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, a perennial fantasy darling. And it seems like when people saw what happened when he got hurt, he kind of had this foot injury that was supposed to be minor and then turned into we're shutting him down for the rest of the season. But it was because Jacoby Brissett came in and
played
all of a
much
sudden,
better.
Right, he was better. He was better, right? And so I think Kyler's stock has taken a huge hit. Would you say that he is just kind of all things being equal, the quarterback that a team would be the most excited to go out and get this offseason?
Ooh.
Obviously, it's a fit question, but just
that's
sort of in a vacuum, would you say that he is the most exciting name on this list still?
Maybe the highest ceiling. We've seen him play at the very best. Just like you mentioned earlier, at one point, he was a top fantasy quarterback. So we saw the types of stats he could put up. And he had the Cardinals at least, in the playoff mix at a couple different times. And so, because Kirk Cousins is too much, he's too old at this point. Aaron Rodgers too old at this point. Derek Carr coming out of retirement. So these are some of the other names. And I will share my favorite player in a moment. But if I think about Kyler Murray, the best spot for him where I think he would actually thrive, because I'm not a Kyler Murray, I don't believe in him. In general, I don't think it's going to work out. I don't think you can change sort of his effort mentality at this point in his career. But if it did work, and I hate to say it because I'm a Panthers fan, I think if he went to Atlanta, there would be great potential.
Absolutely, man. So it's not going to happen. I think there's a very low percentage chance that he is able to get there. But man, if he did, what a match that would be.
I think so, because the weapons are there. They can rely on the run game with Bijan, of course. And then you've got Drake London, you've got Kyle Pitts. So and then Stefanski, is somebody that got the most out of Baker Mayfield early in his career. Now, of course, Baker's playing well in Tampa Bay. But when Baker and Stefanski were there in Cleveland, they had a moment. They were pretty good. Stefanski and Kirk Cousins had a moment in Minnesota. And so I don't know if I fully believe in Stefanski as a head coach, but let's just say best case scenario, he works out in Atlanta. They got the weapons. They got Kyler Murray. I could see that happening.
Can I just tell you my sort of sneaky prediction for this coming season is that Stefanski wins Coach of the Year, and that maybe the Falcons, even without a good quarterback, make a deep playoff push because I think Bijan is so good. I believe Stefanski is a good coach, but their quarterback situation is precarious. But man, if they could lock down one of these guys, imagine running one of those sort of pass run sort of read option type offenses with Kyler and Bijan in the backfield. Kyler would be so happy to be thrown to a guy like Drake London, who I don't know that he's ever really had a receiver like that in his career. So that's one that I find myself sitting there sort of thinking, daydreaming about Kyler ending up with Stefanski in Atlanta and what that team could be. But I think the likelihood of that is pretty low.
Did Kyler ever play with DeAndre Hopkins?
Did he have Hopkins for maybe one season?
I don't know how good he was
at the beginning of his. Yeah, he overlapped with the tail end of Hopkins' relevance. Can't say the tail end of his career because Hopkins still trying to kind of make it work.
Hanging around. Still hanging around.
So he had that, but I don't think he's ever had a QB like that. Marvin Harrison was supposed to be that guy, or a receiver like that. I don't think Marvin Harrison was supposed to be that guy for him. And so, man, imagining how happy he would be throwing to Drake London and handing the ball off to Bijan.
So that's an interesting one. But his name is being, associated with maybe the Browns, maybe the Jets, probably unlikely the Dolphins. But those are some of the names. And so I also want to mention some other quarterbacks that are in the mix as we consider what teams are looking for, what quarterbacks, kind of what they're looking for as well. You got Malik Willis, the backup in Green Bay, who's only started 6 games, but there's a lot of hype around him that, what if he was the starting quarterback somewhere? So could he end up in Arizona? Could he end up in Miami? So that's intriguing. Jimmy Garoppolo has been the backup in L.A. Could he go somewhere? Could Stafford retire and then Garoppolo's the guy, or could Garoppolo follow LaFleur to Arizona? That's right. And then you've got names like, Will Howard. Will he be the guy in Pittsburgh, or will Pittsburgh decide to recommit to Aaron Rodgers? And so that's the other intriguing part of this conversation today. Will any of these teams, decide to, have this recommitment and be willing to say, no, we're going to go back to that quarterback. We're going to return to that quarterback. And so there's a slight chance Miami does that with Tua. I think it's unlikely, but Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh. And then even Kirk Cousins going back to Minnesota is a possibility. And then I think it's probably a long shot that Derek Carr would go back to the Raiders, but that's at least out there. Where will Derek Carr end up? And then you've got Russell Wilson floating around. You've got Marcus Mariota out there, Tyrod Taylor, Joe Flacco, Davis Mills. I mean, tons of these quarterbacks could potentially move. Then you have Anthony Richardson demanding a trade. He's looking for a fresh start. He wants to go somewhere else and sort of breathe new life into his career. And so will that be a possibility for him to end up in Minnesota? I put it down in my notes. I'd love to see Richardson go to the Bills or the Rams. He needs to go with either a quarterback that's legit or a coach that's legit that can really breathe life into his career and give him a second chance. So of some of those other random quarterbacks, anybody else jump out to you?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'll say is that most of the guys that you just named, I don't really care. I think at this time of the year, it's easy to talk yourself into like some of these respected backups in the NFL. If they just found their way into the right situation, something special could happen. I think we almost always talk ourselves into that around April every year, and it just never seems to happen. So it's like Jimmy G, God bless the guy. I don't care. I think he's just a guy. I think he's a mid quarterback. I feel that way about Derek Carr. I mean, they're just, Gardner Minshew. Like there are so many of these guys that I'm just like, they could get on a team and they could have like a few surprising wins and we could kind of convince ourselves that they're going to be relevant. But I just don't ever think that works out the way that like acquiring a top tier quarterback that fits your system really is the number one thing in the NFL. So I'm actually gonna say I think that the next most interesting name on the list that you just gave to me is Malik Willis, because I actually really believe that Malik Willis could be a good starting quarterback in the NFL. If you remember, I mean, this guy was a superstar at Liberty, right? So big fish in a small pond, kind of put that football program on the map because of how incredible he was. And then he came into the NFL. He was with the Titans, right? Like it was just
third round pick,
weird start to his career. Franchise that I think we would say is sort of on the list of one of those places that you don't want to start your quarterback career if you're a highly touted guy. So, and then I really think what we saw in Green Bay
That's an interesting point, just on a side note. Yeah, who has Tennessee ever had that they drafted that was a great quarterback?
I just think that there are these teams
That's interesting.
It seems like every other year they're drafting a quarterback in the first round because they're bad. And you got to ask yourself the question, okay, if the Jets just can never figure it out, but then we see Sam Darnold do what he just did this past season. If the Cleveland Browns, if the Tennessee Titans can just never figure it out at quarterback, is that a problem with those quarterbacks or is it a problem with those teams because you don't want to be a 22-year-old highly touted guy trying to figure out how to make your way in the NFL starting off with the Tennessee Titans. And I think that's unfortunately, I just think that there's a short list of teams that you can make in the NFL who are just like young quarterback ruiners. What's the opposite of a quarterback whisperer? A quarterback traumatizer, And so I actually really think that Malik Willis, we saw him in real game action at time when Jordan Love was hurt and they were playing legitimate first team offense or defenses. We saw him play really, really well. So actually I'm going to say on this list, I think Malik Willis would be the guy that I would be trying to get. And I do think,
I don't know if I buy it.
I think I buy it, man. I think I believe it. And I guess I think we're going to get to find out is the exciting thing. I think we're going to get to find out, but it's just like, again, I would rather as an NFL team, I know so often these guys, a lot of what they're thinking is how do we run a stable offense? Frankly, I think a lot of them are thinking, how do I not lose my job? And so a guy like Jimmy G gives me a chance to win 9 to 11 games and make it into the playoffs. But for me, that just doesn't move the needle, right? It's just like, fine. You want to find somebody that's going to help your team make that leap. And I sort of think that Malik Willis in the right context could be that guy.
All right.
I don't know if I believe that Anthony Richardson can be that guy, but I do believe that Anthony Richardson has all of the physical tools and is going to be highly motivated if he ends up on another team. So he's another guy that I think maybe if your team is just in desperation mode, you just take a swing there because the worst case scenario is really bad and really ugly and really messy. But have you ever heard Bill Simmons, Malcolm Gladwell talk about his pull the goalie theory? in hockey.
It's a big difference. Bill Simmons to Malcolm Gladwell.
Malcolm Gladwell. Actually, I'm not sure that I think they're both kind of cerebral sort of sports philosophy type guys.
That's fair.
But anyway, Malcolm Gladwell, he has this great episode on the trend of hockey teams pulling the goalie, right? And how the reason that you do that is because you're desperate to win. And if it goes well, something miraculous happens and you pull off a victory that you shouldn't have gotten otherwise. If you pull your goalie too early in the game, you end up letting the other team score 12 goals, right? And so it looks terrible in the worst case scenario. In my mind, there's a quarterback corollary there where if you just go for one of these guys, like Aaron Rodgers, if he comes back, I'm so tired of hearing about Aaron Rodgers. And he's just going to lead whatever team that he's on to 9 to 10 wins, and they might make it into the playoffs, and they'll lose in the first round of the playoffs. And it doesn't move the needle for me, but it saves that head coach and that GM their job probably. I would rather swing for the fences on one of these tools, like a Trey Lance, who the worst case scenario is everything falls apart and your team wins 4 games and it's a total disaster and everybody gets fired. But the best case scenario is, wow, you really have struck gold with this guy who was supposed to be a superstar, and he makes a leap and your team makes a leap, and you don't just sneak into the playoffs, but you really make a push to be relevant. And I know that's not the way that most professional NFL associated guys think, but that's the way that I think. I just don't care where Derek Carr ends up, but Anthony Richardson could be interesting in the right situation.
All right. No, it's fair. And yeah, you're looking for a high upside guy.
That's a fantasy football guy talking, is just somebody who wants to see something exciting happen. Yeah, I know that's not the way that real GMs think, but that's what I want to see.
Well, we're not going to, we've already seen the best of Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers. So those guys, yeah, the ceiling isn't there for sure. But here are some scenarios that just me personally, I would like to see happen.
Yeah, I want to hear this.
Some of the interesting, these are just sort of fantasy dream type thoughts. And so I'm curious, if you are listening or watching, leave your comments on what you would like to see as far as quarterbacks and NFL teams teaming up. So to me, Justin Fields is a very legitimate backup. Like, he's not a starter in the NFL, but he can come in and give you a good game here or there. And you know what team needs a good backup that can come in for a game here or there? The Baltimore Ravens. Because Lamar Jackson, the way he plays,
right,
he gets injured. So to me, Justin Fields is an upgrade over Tyler Huntley. Some might argue that, but I would think that's an upgrade. He's younger than Huntley. And so I'd like to see Fields to Baltimore. The Cousins to Minnesota seems to make sense. They just need to stabilize things, give J.J. McCarthy a little bit more time and figure it out versus throwing him back in the mix. So I think Cousins going back to Minnesota just to wrap up his career makes sense.
The one qualification I just think that they know that J.J. McCarthy is not the guy,
Yeah, I think
so.
They
got to figure out something at quarterback, but I don't think in their heart of hearts they believe if we can just give him a little more time to develop, this is going to work out. I think that's another one of those situations where you just can't move on right away. But yeah, they're going to have to figure something out at quarterback. And I've heard they want a guy who's going to sort of light a fire under McCarthy, but I don't think motivation is his problem. I'm just not sure that he's an NFL quarterback. But yeah, Cousins to the Vikings would be a fun sort of reunion to see. So I like that one.
So Derek Carr, I'm a fan of Derek. I want to see him back in the league. And even though he's actually done a nice job media-wise, he's got his own podcast with his brother and all that. But I want to see Derek Carr go to the Jets with Frank Reich.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good pairing. And again, it just sort of gives the Jets a little bit of a baseline, because last year was sort of a disaster. They got to get a little bit better than that. Draft somebody that they can sit behind Carr for a year. That would be best case scenario in that situation. Here's an interesting one. We've got to talk about our Panthers. And there's talk that Andy Dalton is going to get moved potentially. And so to me, he either gets moved or maybe he retires. Like, those are probably the scenarios there. It doesn't seem like he's going to be the backup for Bryce Young again this year. What about bringing Sam Howell home? So Sam Howell's from the Charlotte area. Went to a high school near me. And so I'd like, he went to UNC, of course. I am wearing my Duke's quarter zip today. Big game Saturday night. How you feeling about that one? Have you seen what Duke's done the last 3 games? I
mean, Duke,
4 games.
I never said Duke was not a good team. I just said Carolina was better. And if we're going to play that game with Caleb Wilson, if we're going to play with our best players, then we'll see what happens. But I think Duke, fortunately for them, is going to get a lesser version of the Carolina team. And yeah, so they should be grateful for that.
Yeah. We'll take the we'll see how we'll see the amount of domination.
It's gonna be it could be really ugly. Yeah, it could be brutal.
Sadly, that was my church ball team last night. We were on the wrong side of domination.
Uh-huh.
However, I did find my jumper, so that was nice. It took me 7 games to find my jumper, but all the watching of Con Knipple, it sort of rubbed off. So I finally hit some threes. I hit 5 threes last night, Trip.
Man,
5 threes in a loss. We'll take it. So all that to say,
you're bringing so many threads together there that I just don't care about at all.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Man, it's just kidding.
Our audience is spiking. Our audience is spiking. They want
your
more.
church team to flourish, but yeah, I don't want Duke to flourish. Anyway, keep going. Yep. Go
so
ahead.
Sam Howell to the Panthers, I think would be fun.
Uh-huh.
Bring him in here. He's probably going to be a backup in this league. Like, I'm not sure that he's one of those guys like, oh, you give him an opportunity, he's going to be a starter. But maybe he pushes Bryce a little bit. Maybe he gets another opportunity. The concern with Howell is he has bounced around the league so far. He's been traded a couple times.
Oh, man. He had flashes, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, like Washington.
Howell was he was one of these guys that was supposed to be good coming into the NFL. He had flashes with Washington. There were times where some of the stats indicated that he was a much better quarterback than his record showed. I think that that's something that really could happen. I think there's a legitimate chance that he comes as the backup to the Panthers. I would be concerned about what that might do to Bryce Young's hold on that role and sort of his mental state. Because again, Bryce, man, it's hard for me to say difficult things about Bryce Young after the end of the season. I know that he's well loved in the city. I want to see him succeed. I just don't think that I believe that he's going to. And he does seem to be mentally. He can get, seems like things can get in his head pretty easily. And man, let's just say that he got hurt for a game or two. And then Sam Howell came in and had one of those stretches like he had in Washington where he looked like a legit, kind of an exciting low-level starter in the NFL. Man, what would that could shake things up in Charlotte. That could shake things up with the Panthers in a way that I'd be a little concerned about.
I think you're overestimating Howell a little bit there, but
right,
I mean,
right.
I'm not sure that there is a quarterback available that is clearly better than Bryce. But the name that and this isn't going to happen because, but that
is clearly better than. Well, we can't go down.
That's available. That's available.
Like you're talking about if just any of these guys on this team, are you saying a guy who's available to come be the backup or somebody that I could find to come to the Panthers to be a better starting quarterback than Bryce Young right now?
Yeah,
because I think that I could name a half dozen guys on this list who I believe are better than Bryce Young.
Wow.
Yeah.
Give me two.
I feel highly confident that Malik Willis is a better quarterback than Bryce Young.
Wow.
I believe that Geno Smith could be a better quarterback than Bryce Young. Man, I don't think I don't want to go down this path. Let's keep going. I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to get too negative here, and I don't want to do that. I want the Panthers to enjoy the season, the postseason excitement that they just had, and we'll talk about this at a later date.
I'd like to see the Panthers.
I'm 1,000% sure that Kyler Murray is better than Bryce Young.
No, I don't. Not necessarily. I wouldn't say that. On best case scenario, on the perfect day, maybe. But the lack of consistency, and we already talked about Kyler, so I wouldn't give you that.
Kyler Murray is Bryce Young. If Bryce,
Kyler's a runner, and
right, that's what I'm saying.
Different player.
Kyler Murray is Bryce Young. If Bryce Young had 30 more pounds of muscle and was good at running and passing. Right. Like, I just think like, I don't want to get too negative here, man, but I don't know. I guess I don't believe in Bryce Young. I'm sorry. I take back everything I just said. I feel so bad about saying it, but I think we
can have an honest
conversation. Different pages about Bryce and whether he's a good NFL quarterback or not. So
we can have an honest conversation about that. But to me, there's a different conversation between, is Bryce, the franchise guy, worth a big contract that you're going to continue to make him your starter, versus looking at the current quarterback market and saying, we're going to go find somebody that we're going to bring in here to push him out or to compete with him. I don't see that scenario this offseason.
Right. Not
coming off of a playoff game. Now, drafting somebody, even in the second, third round as a potential, maybe. I'd be open to that. But again, I don't know if this quarterback class actually fits that. Possibility. but maybe next year. So that's why bringing in somebody like Sam Howell, a little bit younger, maybe there's something there. But if not, he's a solid backup. Okay, I'm cool with that too.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. So I like that one.
The last thing, and then we're going to talk about our faith parallel here today. The name that we haven't talked enough about, which I actually think has a very high ceiling in the right situation, is Tua Tagovailoa, because we've seen it. Mm-hmm. We've seen what he's capable of. He has been a really good quarterback in this league. We've also seen him really bad in this league, but we've also seen the injury concerns. And that to me is, that's what has overshadowed his career more than the poor play. Don't get me wrong. There has been some poor play, but it's also been circumstantial and wide receivers in and out of the lineup. And so from a storyline standpoint, have we heard this one? What about Tua going to Philadelphia and backing up Jalen Hurts again?
Interesting.
I'd love to see that. That sounds like a fun storyline. We'll see what Uncle Kevin thinks about that one. Eagles fan. But I think Tua going to the right situation, now that would be in a backup standpoint. But what if he went to Atlanta? I'd find that to be pretty intriguing. Mm-hmm. If he goes to Cleveland, interesting. Arizona.
Doesn't like the cold weather.
He doesn't like
that's
the hard take out Cleveland.
Cleveland is
take
the
out
cold
Cleveland.
Weather.
Take out Cleveland.
I do
fair.
think that's a real possibility for where he ends up. But man, it'd be interesting to see if he could get acclimated to the cold.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Is it true that Tua has had 2 consecutive seasons without concussions now?
I believe
think that's
so.
right. Yeah.
I believe so. But the poor play has also been a factor last 2 seasons.
The Tyreek Hill of it all, like what Tyreek Hill unlocks for quarterbacks and what happens to those quarterbacks when he goes away is just such an interesting thing to me, because I think Tyreek is kind of a diva wide receiver, and he's getting older. But he just opens up the field for quarterbacks in a way where when he's gone, they have a difficult time adjusting to that. That happened to Tua this past season. I think we saw it happen to Patrick Mahomes a little bit, to be honest. And so I do think that Tua could be a good quarterback. Seems like the concussion concerns, we can say, at least are far enough behind him that you don't have to worry about that as much as you would have 2 seasons ago. And I think if he lands in the right spot, he would be really interesting in Atlanta. I guess where I'm landing with so much of this conversation is that some of these teams really have the infrastructure and the quality players around their empty quarterback position.
That's right.
And I think Atlanta might be right at the top of that list.
But that's also moving on from Penix pretty quickly.
Well, Penix is going to be injured at the start of the season. And so you get the possibility of, hey, maybe another guy comes in and just hits the ground running. And then we never even really have a conversation about Penix coming back in as the starter. But if things don't work out, you've got him waiting in the wings, and you can pivot back to him and give him another chance and see what he develops into. But I think the situation in Atlanta is ripe for a good quarterback to come in and do something special there.
Yes, I agree. So I think the team that has the best chance of kind of getting over the hump with the right guy is Atlanta. And to me, the best quarterback possibility is Tua.
I like that, man.
I think he's the one, the most likely to be like Sam Darnold is Tua, in my opinion. Yeah. So would love to know your thoughts. You can leave your comments wherever you're watching. But the questions today, as we kind of navigate, all right, which teams and quarterbacks are going to make changes at quarterback, and they're searching for a new home or a new quarterback. What are you looking for, and what do you need? And so as we've discussed, there are many teams looking to move on from their quarterback, and so Arizona moving on, Atlanta moving on. And so the second category for teams is, they're looking for a fresh start, or individual players are looking for a fresh start. And so when you start talking about, Anthony Richardson, Justin Fields, the Jets are looking for a fresh start. And then you've got teams that are, looking to renew their commitment. And so Pittsburgh falls into that category with Aaron Rodgers, and maybe you can consider if Minnesota renews their commitment to Kirk Cousins and brings him back. And then you also have to consider, we haven't even talked about this yet, but the other teams that have injured quarterbacks. So in Indianapolis, they're dealing with a Daniel Jones injury. In Kansas City, they're dealing with a Patrick Mahomes injury. And so they have to go into the QB market to find a quarterback that can come in to start the season. Now in Indy, they also have to make a decision about Daniel Jones. I think it's best case scenario for Daniel and for Indy to renew their commitment.
I agree.
And bring him back. So I'm not sure what other teams are going to go get an injured quarterback who really only thrived in Indy. I mean, he did okay with the Giants, but that was the right fit for Daniel Jones in Indy. So I assume that they'll stick together. But here's what Indy and Kansas City has to find. They have to find a quarterback that can get them through a tough time. They have to get through the injury, get through the first few weeks of the season when their starting quarterback is out. And so who will they find? And that's what they need. That's what they're looking for. And then the last category is, teams that are looking for hope. And so the Las Vegas Raiders are going into the draft looking for hope. They're looking to draft a quarterback. And maybe the Jets, maybe the Browns, there'll be a number of teams that draft a quarterback. But if the Raiders draft Mendoza and he provides that franchise hope, that's what they're looking for right now. So they'll most likely move on from Geno Smith. And so where will he end up? That'll be, another part of the conversation. And so as we, set this up for our own lives, we're going to have a conversation about what this looks like for us in our faith journey is the same questions. What am I looking for? And what do I need? And what NFL franchises do we relate to, identify with? Are we maybe in a season of life where we realize we need to move on from something? We're kind of like Arizona. We're kind of like Atlanta, where it's like, it's time to move on. It's time for a new direction. And so as we follow Jesus, he's the one who provides the freedom that we're looking for. And he's the one that empowers us to move forward. And so we have to ask ourselves, what sins, what mindsets, what relationships do we need to move on from? And to be, kind of inspired by that today. And then for others of us today, maybe we relate to an Anthony Richardson and Justin Fields because we're looking for that fresh start. And we're looking for kind of new life breathed into us. And for some of us, that means surrendering to Jesus for the first time and becoming a new creation and having a brand new life. Now, for others of us, maybe we're looking for a new situation, a new opportunity, a new scenario. But either way, we need Jesus to change us. We need that that fresh start, that second chance, that kind of new life breathed into us. And so for some of us, just that freshness, the kind of a new outlook. And so are we turning to Jesus for that deep life change? And so in 2 Corinthians 5:17, it says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. And then in Ephesians 4:22 through 24, it tells us, you were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. And so do you identify with that it's time to experience that new life? And maybe there's something in your life where you're feeling a conviction about where it's time to move on. And God is pointing that out to you. He's encouraging you in that. And maybe you're kind of looking for some of that affirmation or that confirmation to say, it is time to move on. It's time to move on from that sin. It's time to move on from that relationship. And so for Tripp, as you kind of look at these first two categories that I've brought up, kind of what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I think what you're naming there, Bryce, is this important idea of like spiritual awareness, spiritual self-awareness, right? That when we come to faith in Jesus, the Bible uses the most extreme language possible. It says you were spiritually dead and now you're spiritually alive. So don't go on being spiritually ignorant or spiritually asleep, right? Like, and so it is a really important and underrated skill and discipline of the Christian life of a follower of Jesus to just be able to recognize, where am I spiritually right now, and what specifically do I need from the Lord, right? I think a lot of us are probably nervous to ask that question. What do I need from God? Because we're afraid that we're going to go quickly to sort of a prosperity mindset of like, what's just the good stuff in life that I want him to give me? But if you're a follower of Jesus, it's a really important question to ask, where am I right now? And what do I need from him? Which is exactly why Jesus in the Gospels, all the time he would go around and he would approach people and he would say, what do you want me to do for you? What are you seeking? He would go to people who were paralyzed and laying on a mat, and say, do you want me to heal you? Right? What was Jesus doing with those questions? Anytime in the Bible that God asks a question, by the way, he knows the answer to the question, right? The reason that he asks them is to engage us into to make us aware of what is going on. And so Jesus was always going around saying, hey, do you even know what you need from me? Do you even know what your heart desires and what you're seeking, and how I am the answer to that desire? Right? And so it's really important, Bryce. I think a lot of us assume that we know what's going on inside of us spiritually. But you do, there's a certain discipline, there's a certain work. It's a work that is not work, right? It's a work that is, can you stop working long enough to say, hey, what's going on inside of me, and what do I need Jesus to do to me at a heart level? And so, yeah, this is a critical topic just to open our minds and our hearts to a little bit today.
That's right. And we're just looking at the parallel to, 4 or 5 different categories that relate to NFL teams.
Well, some of those things that you named are exactly the deep desires of our heart that we often don't know that we need. And so I love the NFL corollary of, do you need hope? Do you need a fresh start? And could you even, some NFL teams don't know what they actually need, right? And so many of us maybe wouldn't be able to name, what's the thing that I really need at a heart level from Jesus today? And so I think the connection you're making with this quarterback need question to what's the real heart need that you have is a really, really great one.
That's right. And so for some of you listening today, it may not necessarily be one of these categories that we discuss, but we hope that you'll go through that process, because maybe it's the simplicity yet the complexity of just receiving God's love. That you just need God's love. You just need a reminder of how much he loves you today. And maybe you need joy or peace today. That's what you need. So those are separate topics. But today, some of the other things that we're discussing, as we think about the Steelers and the renewed commitment that they might make to Aaron Rodgers, our renewed commitment is much better than any commitment to an aging diva quarterback. But we might need that renewed commitment today to Jesus, that we need a renewed commitment to following him, a renewed commitment to studying his word, a renewed commitment to getting up and spending time with him, a renewed commitment to prayer. I mentioned this in recent podcasts, but I'm almost done with the book, but reading the book, The Praying Life. And so just this renewed commitment to prayer and being intentional about who I'm praying for and what I'm praying about, and really keeping track of answered prayers and understanding that sometimes the answer is no. And so what do we need a recommitment to? A renewed commitment. And also another way to frame it is, the Steelers might remain with Aaron Rodgers, or Aaron Rodgers will remain in Pittsburgh. And so often we have to be reminded and remember to just remain in Jesus, with Jesus. Like he's never going to leave us, but we want to remain close to him, and abide in him.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, just, that's where the metaphor breaks down, right? Because I just said, as someone who's tired of hearing about Aaron Rodgers, I don't want the Steelers to remain with Rodgers. Whereas I never want to get tired of hearing about Jesus and hearing from Jesus. And we're always called to abide in him. He's the vine, we're the branch. We only live insofar as we abide in him. And so that's, where the metaphor breaks down is all of these quarterbacks that we just named have imperfections,
that's right,
deficiencies to their game. And you're just trying to find the best possible guy for your scheme, right? I think that it is the case that all of us, we sort of have an idea of like we have a scheme for the spiritual life. And what we need to be reminded of is that Jesus is the all-sufficient shepherd and king for any scheme, for any person, right? And so we should never get tired of hearing about him. We should always remain in him. And the amazing thing is that he never gets tired of us coming back to him, right? So you talk about these guys who need a fresh start. I think the biblical word for a fresh start is repentance, right? And Jesus never, ever gets tired of us repenting and saying, Jesus, I need to return to the basics. I need to come back to kind of first principles and have a fresh start with you. And he doesn't greet us with, oh, buddy, we've done this 100 times before, right? He says, my arms are wide open. You can always return to me, get a fresh start with me, repent, and remain in me. And so, Jesus is the all-sufficient starting QB with no deficiencies in his game, no shortcomings in any way, and he's able to meet every one of our needs. But I love, Bryce, the way that you're framing this is, we don't figure out kind of like what the need or the kind of surface level desire is, and then come to Jesus and say, hey, give me this specific thing. We go to Jesus and say, hey, what do I really, what are the deep needs of my heart, the deep desires of my heart? And that order is very, very important. That's critical to say. We're not coming to Jesus with a short list of surface level needs and saying, you better fix these for me. We're coming to him and saying, hey, Jesus, you know my heart better than anyone else. Can you meet me down in the deep desires, the fundamental needs of my life? Man, I'm just loving this quarterback corollary is lighting me up, because it really is. It's a framework that works for, I need Jesus to be the QB of my life. I got to stop being that armchair QB, and I need him to take charge and run the scheme in a way that only he can.
Amen. Absolutely. And so, yeah, as far as, remaining in him or sticking with Jesus, like if the Steelers stick with Aaron Rodgers, okay, that's one thing. But for us, we want to stick with Jesus, and he is the author and perfecter of our faith. And so when we read in Hebrews 12:2, the first part here in the Amplified translation, looking away from all that will distract us and focusing our eyes on Jesus, who is the author and perfecter of faith, the first incentive for our belief and the one who brings our faith to maturity. And so he's who we need. He's the author and the perfecter. And so we have to recognize who he is and the role that he plays in our lives. And so, yeah, we want to stick with him. We want to keep pursuing him. We want to keep our eyes fixed on him. And so every day we've got to, recenter, realign and go, all right, my eyes are on you. Where are we going? I'm trusting you and depending on you. And then in Psalm 51:10, we could pray this prayer: create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Renew a steadfast spirit within me. And so, this renewed commitment. And really, it's every day. Every day we renew our commitment to Jesus to say, I'm going out, I'm following you. I need you, I'm dependent on you, and let's go. But create in me that pure heart and forgive me and cleanse me and give me that steadfast spirit where it is, I need you. I need you. And I'm going to remain consistent and I'm going to stick with you, type of approach and posture.
I love that, man. Yeah. And again, that Hebrews chapter 12 verse is such a good one. The language that comes right before what you read says, let us lay aside every sin or every weight and sin which clings so closely. And I love that verse because I think it says there are things in your life that are sins that you need to lay aside. And then there's this whole other category of things that are not strictly speaking sinful, but they're just weighing you down from the life that you're meant to live with Jesus. And I think so often what so many of us will do is kind of the proverbial coach of our spiritual lives is we'll say, we will bench Jesus. We'll say, hey, Jesus, come out for a few plays.
I got this.
Yeah, I got that. You've been doing all right. Hey, money, get in there. You're running this thing now. Hey, workaholism, get in there. You're the quarterback today. Hey, alcohol, you're the thing that can take care of it, And what we need to do is to bench those secondary things, to kick those weights that cling so closely to the curb and let Jesus run things, right? And so there's this, he has to create a new situation, a new heart within us. But so often we're trying to bring in second stringers to run our life when we have that all-sufficient leader, that all-sufficient shepherd, that high priest who cares for us. And so, yeah, man, there are just so many, a great sort of diagnosis question and practical question is, who are some of the second stringers that I call in to run things when I'm trying to do it in my own strength and by my own understanding, and letting Jesus have charge over my life scheme, over my offense, so to speak.
That's right. And just like we were talking about with teams, we got to move on. We got to move on.
Sometimes you got to move on. That's right. That's right.
Move on and not look back. And so two other kind of categories that may relate to where we're at today. Like we were talking about with the Chiefs and the Colts, they're injured. Like their starters are injured. I'm assuming Daniel Jones returns, and of course Mahomes is there in Kansas City, and so they're looking for someone to get them through a tough time, get through the injured process, and so for many of us, we're in a season where we're injured, we're banged up, we're in a tough spot, and we need somebody to get us through. And yes, friends are great, and our spouse can help us get through. But ultimately, we're looking for Jesus. The answer again is Jesus. That's who we need to get us through. We need His strength, His power, His compassion, His comfort, His peace. That's what we need to get through this, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so, are we turning to Him? Are we bringing Him into the situation? Are we welcoming Him? He's willing to enter into that situation, like we talked about in recent weeks. He'll enter into our brokenness, into our weakness. And so, the Chiefs are looking for a quarterback that's willing to kind of come into that situation. Like, hey, you got to come in. We need you. And so for us, is that who are we turning to Jesus because we need Him to get us through a tough time?
I love that, man. And that's such a great note to kind of wind up the conversation with is, one of the ways that we need spiritual self-awareness is to say, man, am I in a season of particular suffering or struggle? Have I maybe really endured a real spiritual injury in this most recent season of my life? And just remember that Jesus, when He describes His heart in Matthew 11, says, I'm gentle and lowly. I don't quench sort of a smoking ember, and I don't break a bruised reed. I'm gentle and I'm tender. You can come to me with your injuries, with your seasons of struggle and suffering, and I will meet you with tenderness. And I think so many of us so often are like, I can just put my head down and just kind of brute force will my way through this. Don't get me wrong. The Bible talks all over the place about the importance of hard work and diligence. But it also is so important to remember sometimes I just need to come to Jesus with a specific injury that I have and allow Him to be tender to me and sort of train me back into full health. And so I love that you ended on that note, Bryce. That's not a place that I would have thought to go, but it's so true that sometimes when we have those seasons of hurt, Jesus loves to meet us there too.
Absolutely. All right, I got one more for you though. The teams that are looking for hope, the Raiders, the Browns, the Jets, they're looking for hope. They need hope. Those fan bases need hope. And for many of us today,
they need hope, man. They need hope. Yeah.
Gosh, we need hope. We're coming out of a disappointing season. We're in the middle of a disappointing season. It appears that there might even be a disappointing season on the ahead of us, and we need hope. And so, where are we turning for hope? And once again, we got to trust Jesus. And so if He is our Lord and Savior, we have hope. And so we have to remind ourselves of the truth of the gospel and the reality that He is our hope for the present. He is the hope for the future. He is the one that gets us through this situation. But we also have such great hope for we know how this ends. We know what eternity is. We don't know exactly all the details, but man, we know who we're going to be with, and we know who saved us. And so that's the hope that drives us. And it's not a fleeting hope, but it's hope anchored into a person. It's in Jesus. That's where our hope is. And so regardless of our situation, man, we have hope. And now will Mendoza, I don't know, is he going to be the savior for the Raiders? It will give them some hope, but it may be fleeting. But for us as followers of Jesus, we have lasting hope. We have real deep hope, and it's in Jesus. And so that's how if we're feeling discouraged, we're feeling down and out, man, we got to remind ourselves and cling to Him. And so in Hebrews 10:23, let us seize and hold tightly the confession of our hope without wavering. For He who promised is reliable and trustworthy and faithful to His word. And so trust and hope are so tightly connected there that as we trust in Him, man, we have hope. We have hope for today. We have hope for tomorrow. And we especially have hope for the future that keeps us going. The Jets are just looking for a reason to show up to games. They just need a little bit of hope. But for us, we have that hope to show up today, to keep following Jesus, to keep trusting Him. And so let that hope drive us. Amen. So the kind of final thoughts as we wrap this up and to make some of this practical as well. The other piece, as I was thinking about this with NFL teams, is they're looking for the best quarterback available, the best quarterback that's going to fit their needs and is the best option for what they're looking for. And some teams are looking for different things.
Mm-hmm.
And there will be teams that will end up settling for one reason or another.
Yeah, right.
They're going to settle. And so the encouragement for us today is we don't have to settle. That when we turn to Jesus for our hope, for our freedom as we move on from things that are holding us back, and we get that fresh start in him, that when we renew our commitment to him and follow him and remain in him, we're no longer settling. We're not settling for this lackluster outlook, because there will be some NFL teams that will have a lackluster outlook after the dust settles and they won't have a good quarterback situation. And so the encouragement for us today is let's not settle. Like, we don't have to settle for what the world tells us. We don't have to settle for mediocre small g gods and idols. We don't have to settle for that. We have the answer that we need, and what we're truly looking for, what our heart and soul is longing for, is Jesus to be our Lord, to be our Savior, to be our hope, to be our peace, to be the fresh start, to give us that fresh start. And so he's the one that sets us up to thrive now and moving forward. And so, think about the NFL teams. Like, some of these NFL teams are going into the offseason and they're going to implement a really good plan. They're going to give up what is necessary to go get the quarterback that they really need. And they're going to make some bold changes. They're going to, take a financial hit. They're going to, swallow some cap space or whatever, and give up some draft picks potentially, all that kind of thing. And so for us, how that parallels, what is our plan? How are we intentionally pursuing Jesus and renewing our commitment to him? And are we intentionally, looking to him for hope? What is our plan? What are we giving up? What are we surrendering? What are we moving on from to really have, all that's available in him? So tie us up, clean it up. Any final thoughts here, Tripp?
No, that's so great, man. I do think so many of it. What's the quote that says that so many men all around us live lives of quiet desperation, right? Of just this, like, so many of us, because of the busyness of the world, the overfullness of our life, the rush of our existence, we have settled for shallow, sort of semi life, right? And there are NFL teams that will sort of settle for just kind of shallow mediocrity for seasons and seasons at a time. Wow. And what's really needed there is, okay, we got to stop, and we really got to we got to overhaul this thing and make a significant decision. And so, and I do think there's a really important difference between just daily settling for shallow spiritual living,
that's right,
versus having moments in our life where we stop, where we rest. Some might even say, where we Sabbath, where we come back to church on Sunday and we reevaluate. Have I just been settling for shallow spirituality this week, or am I trying to live the fullness of life, the deep, loving relationship, and the glorious adventure that Jesus invites me on? And so for those who are listening out there who are like, man, yeah, I feel like I've settled for that shallowness. There's no shame there. Don't experience shame, but do hear some of that invitation and even conviction to stop and to ask yourself, what's the big change? What's the big move, the big signing that we've got to make to come back to the fullness of life, to the adventure, to the true eternal victory that we were made for?
Amen. It's a good way to end this and wrap it up. So good stuff from Tripp. And so, yeah.
Great topic today, Bryce. Thanks, man, for teeing this up for us. Yeah, this is great.
Absolutely. I thought a lot about it over the weekend. So it was prayed through and thought through. So praise God for how it all came together. So hopefully all of us can kind of identify one area and maybe focus on that,
for sure.
And turn to Jesus for that specifically. But I like what you said earlier. Like, let's go to Jesus and let him tell us what we need, what we really need. And being just pausing, resting, being contemplative. Let's be encouraged to do some of that this week as well. So for Tripp, I'm Bryce. Man, the NFL. We snuck in a little NFL topic.
Sneak a little NFL in March, baby.
Before we dive into March Madness. and so just a quick teaser. We will be doing the Unpackin' It March Madness Bracket Challenge.
I'm winning this year.
So be on the lookout for that.
Bryce, I said I'm winning this year.
Oh, well, good luck with that. We all think we're going to win, but that's part of the fun. That's why we do it.
This is my year, baby.
That's why we do it. So that should be a great time. Looking forward to that. And we'll be talking a lot of college basketball in the coming weeks. So enjoy the Duke Carolina game Saturday night. I know I plan to. That's the goal.
Yeah.
I'm
not sure if I'm going to be enjoying it, to be honest.
Following the Monday night game with NC State, I'm feeling pretty good. So we'll see. And then the Hornets. Hopefully the Hornets keep rolling as well. So
we got to talk about the Hornets at some point, man.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Episode.
We will. Once the playoffs roll around and the Hornets are hot.
And they're in it, baby.
That's it. So for Trip, I'm Bryce. I'm a sports fan who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sin. He was resurrected. And through faith, I've been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well. And I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans who follow Jesus together. Have a great rest of your day. And we'll talk to you next time right here on the Unpackin' It podcast.